Hi guys, welcome back to Reading Tips Tuesday. We're continuing a series about how to write negative book reviews. I don't like negative book reviews. Well, they're just because they're negative. I don't like negativity that much. But they're important, and I'm going to start out today with talking about expectations you as a reviewer should have in the actions of a writer. So writers could listen into and glean some things from this. And two, we're going to talk about the actual content of that review. Things to avoid and things to put in. Number one of your expectations. Writers, you shouldn't expect authors not to argue with you. This is one that gets some writers into trouble. In fact, I avoid reading certain authors simply because they have a bad reputation for arguing with their readers when they write a negative review. It is very easy as authors to want to get in and say, that's not what I meant, this isn't how it is, it was in the fantasy category, can you not see that? Of course it's Christian, it's under the Christian, category in Amazon. It's very easy to get in there and want to fight, or not even fight so much as set the record straight. I have only twice gotten into discussions with my readers. It's because I knew the readers and reviewers, and one of them had a concern about Kate's case files, and I kind of gave her kind of a peek into the future so that hopefully she'd understand. And then one of them made a comment because they're like, the model didn't match the descriptions I was giving, and I actually said, actually this person does have the same color hair as the model does on the front, but if it said that in a different, please let me know where it was. And they're like, oh, I could change the review. And I was like, no. If you mistook it, then please keep it in the review, but just let me know. But it's very rare exceptions that you should do it, and only if you know the reviewer and not in a confrontational way. If they just don't like, this was the two times I did it, I knew the reviewers, I hadn't asked them for a review, I knew the reviewers, and it was more, I wanted to let them know some facts, and I wanted to know where the mistake was, the second one. But if it was just somebody I didn't know at all, didn't have any connection with, I would not have, I wouldn't have said anything. And two, it's just, you don't want to go down the road of arguing or even setting the record straight. I've had some people who have said, there's these historical inaccuracies in some of my books. Well, no, those are things I researched, and I actually do know what I'm talking about. But I, as an author, can't get into that. Which brings up number two, your expectations as a reviewer from the author is if you write a negative review. If some of you have been asked to review directly from the author, negative reviews are acceptable. Some authors might get upset, and especially new writers, if it's a new writer who's independently published, better to set that up ahead of time to let them know, hey, just so you know, if I don't like it, I am going to publish the negative review. Every once in a great while, there were a couple of times that I agreed that if I was going to write a below 3-star, I would let them know. But I always said I was going to publish them. Because it's important when I agree to it, I'm agreeing to write a review, negative or positive, and you need to know that as a reviewer. You are agreeing to do it, and the author then is, they get what you put. Negative reviews are acceptable. The third expectation you as a reviewer can have of writers is that even if you write a negative review, the author doesn't have the right to bash you. Like I said last time, I had a friend that she was getting really bashed by this author and her friends, and then I got caught in it just because I had tried to support her. But as a reviewer, when you agree to this, even if you write a negative review, you have the expectation, or should have it, that you're not going to get bashed. And by bashed, I don't mean just somebody, reader, who just doesn't agree with you. But I mean the author shouldn't be sending people to tell you off, to vote down your Amazon review, and so on and so forth. At writers, it can be really tempting, especially when somebody publishes an ugly review. I've gotten a couple of them. I got one that was just, the person obviously hadn't read the book because the things she mentioned didn't even line up with the characters or the story plot. But that didn't give me license to go and get people on our case. One, there's that whole returning evil for good thing in the Bible that kind of messes with that all. Being a Christian and an author sometimes can really mess you up. But it's important that when you're asking for reviews, people feel safe. And you'll get more positive reviews because people will know, I wrote a negative review, they didn't get upset, I feel comfortable trying this. That's completely different. Or people know, I didn't like it, didn't have an issue with it. I think one of the things that authors set themselves up for is if they bash somebody's reviews, they often get a hate group because, well, you hated on my friend who wrote a negative review, so I'm just going to post negative stuff on all your books. Okay, it's just a self-feeding system. So those are expectations you as a reviewer can have of writers, and if the writers were listening, kind of what you need to be doing for your reviewers and staying at it. Basically, hands off, especially when it comes to negative reviews. And just a hint, even positive reviews, you want to be careful how involved you in. But we'll talk about that more when we're going on to positive reviews and neutral reviews. Today we're going to finish up our series on negative reviews with talking about what to put in your content. We already talked about personal attacks are a big no-no. Not only for just because, remember, there's another person at the end of that screen, but also judging the thoughts and motivations of the heart of a writer, especially you don't know them and nobody can know what's in the heart, is just dangerous ground. Again, I think that you could find a very good biblical basis for that. We're not going to get into this. This isn't a Bible study, but I encourage you to look it up for yourself. But you can, as a Christian, say you felt certain things did not meet standards. Especially, like it or not, there are certain things that when you pick up a book that is labeled in the Christian section, and especially books you pick up for free, you might want to double check, because there have been some that I have thought were in the Christian fiction section, but surprised to go and find out they weren't. So check that label. But if they're in the Christian fiction section, you could pretty much, you have the expectation of finding no language, no graphic sexual content, actually pretty much no sexual content, maybe a little bit of mention, but nothing that gets anywhere near being explicit. You can pretty much count on there being a faith element. Now, it might just be that they say prayer, they might read the Bible, they might go to church, or it could be that they're, it's just like if you took it out of the Christian element, there would be no story. There's a wide range. If there are some of those elements in a story, if you find some of those things in Christian fiction, it doesn't necessarily reflect that the authors are evil. So again, refrain from personal attacks. But when you're writing for the Christian audience, those are just expectations. May not be right. There's some grittier fiction out there that I think has not only a lot of validity, but does a lot of good. but people have the expectation that they're going to have a clean read when they come to Christian fiction. And it's okay if you find that stuff in there to say, I was not comfortable with this element, and I was surprised to find it in a book labeled for Christian fiction. It is not okay to say that you're questioning the author's faith because of that. One of the other things, it is also okay to put that you were expecting something very different and got something different, that the description was misleading. If the description says gritty or, hard-hitting, or talks about a certain topic that's just kind of edgy, and you're surprised to find some of that content on there, probably need to brush up. If something says gritty or dark, you're probably going to get some of that content in there. So you could have that. But I've picked up books. I'm just going to pick one. I picked up a nonfiction book. It was called Hope Something or the Other, and it was talking about bringing hope to people who are hurting. I actually think it may have been called Hope for the Hurting. I got to the end of the book, and I didn't like it because I thought the book was going to be like practical hands-on from the description. When I got to the end of it, it was basically about this organization, and I didn't get that from the description. And so I gave a negative review, saying that this says it's about helping people bring hope, but really it's about these two women who are doing wonderful work. But it's about their organization, primarily. Not a lot of practical hands-on that it led me to believe in the description. Disappointed expectations is a valid reason to give negative review. I'm just going to pick, there was a series I really liked. I gave the last book a fairly negative rating because I felt like the whole book had been set up kind of as like an Emma retelling, like Jane Austen's Emma. And it was completely turned on its head, and I didn't like how the characters got with. I felt like Emma got with the Frank Churchill character, and it wasn't set up as a direct Emma retelling. I have to be honest there. But it was enough like it, and there were so many things set up just like it. It felt like I'd been cheated out of the ending that I was expecting. And again, it's okay to say, I felt like that. One of the easiest way to avoid being frustrated, both frustrating an author, frustrated a publishing company, or frustrating the readers who read those negative thoughts, is to put it on you. I was disappointed. I had misunderstood the expectations. I don't like this content of the book. I didn't do enough research, and so forth. It takes a lot of the sting out of a lot of things you say, and when it puts it on you, they can't say, but you're saying this author. Nope, I'm saying I didn't do enough research to know any better. I think another thing is, it's also okay, let's just say an author offers you a review copy. You accept. You get to it. You absolutely hated it. You don't want to write a negative book review. I've done this a couple times. I got a book, and I didn't like it. I got halfway in and I felt it was too much like another story. And there was a lot there. We won't go into all of it. And I told the author I would rather not write a review. It was my disappointed expectations, my not asking enough questions, but I really didn't want to give her the negative review because it was my personal thing. And, I really didn't want to do it. And the author agreed that was fine with her. So sometimes if you just feel like you don't want to do that negative review, that it's just like, I didn't do enough research, I didn't understand, it's okay to go back to the publisher or the author and say, I don't want to do a review, I don't want to finish the book. It's also acceptable to say, I didn't finish it, but here's why I stopped reading. Another thing is, brief is better when it comes to negativity. A long rant often means a lot of needless repeating, a lot of just dissecting. Sometimes it's needed, especially for nonfiction books. Sometimes if there's theology that was messed up, it takes a long review just to say, this is where I'm coming from. These are the Bible verses that I feel don't match what this person's saying. But in fiction, often brief is better. I didn't like that I found this content in the book. I didn't like who this character got with. I thought this character was an idiot. Another thing, helpful tip for writing a negative review is being honest. Sometimes we tend to want to just make things other people's problems. And they're really just our likes and dislikes. Not even our problems, just likes and dislikes. I'm going to pick one. I don't like Jen Turano. Her books drive me up a wall. I've tried 3 of them. Hated all 3. And I just, because that she just doesn't write books I like. Jen Turano's fine. There's nothing wrong with Jen Turano. It's just not my personal preference. And that's okay. You may not like my books. You might find my plots incredibly boring. You're just very interested in my Book Tips Tuesday because I give great advice. But that's okay. If you read a couple of my books and go, Kate's dull, Patrick's boring, these plots are stupid, don't bother keep reading them. There's no need, and it's okay to tell me, it's okay to leave a review saying, these books aren't for me. I don't like them. I'm giving 1 star because they're not for me. But I will say one other thing. Probably best not to keep reading. I think it would also be unfair. After having read those 3 Jen Turano books, I went and bought more Jen Turano and kept reading and kept giving negative reviews. And before you wonder why I read 3, I read 1 Jen Turano, didn't like it. Somebody said, probably not her best. Try this short story and this book. And I tried the short story. I don't even think I finished it, and I don't think I even rated it on Goodreads because I just went, nope, not for me. And I read the other book completely through because I was just like, maybe I'll figure it out. See what everybody else sees. I didn't, and decided, okay, I'm done. I know that's not for me. So I hope that in doing this video, it has helped you as a reader, maybe some authors, to see the value and what to do and what not to do. Next week, we're going to talk about writing neutral reviews. These are reviews, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. What do I do? Because that's a really tough one. And it won't be a 2-parter. This is just going to be a very easy one. But it hopefully has some very helpful information.